Hi everyone, my project for Serverless Conference is CounselorBot Saves the Day. And you might be asking yourselves, like, what is CounselorBot? Is it a physical robot, an AI-powered machine, or just in general, what is it, right? Great question, I'm glad that you asked. CounselorBot is actually a GitHub bot that guides students through the serverless curriculum, which is exactly what I went through to present at this conference. And so just a quick intro about myself. I'm Ganning. I'm actually a rising high school junior at North Carolina School of Science and Math. And I actually first got into programming in seventh grade when my dad had me read this book called Creating Games with Python. And I was like, this is something that I wanted to do. No, just kidding. I actually really didn't like programming when I first started, but I do enjoy it now. And that's all thanks to my first programming class, which I actually took formally. And that's from ninth grade. And it was Python Programming 1. So if you're out there, Mr. Fox, thank you for that. I loved your class. And yeah, you're the best. But outside of programming, some things I like to do include swimming and trying new food. So for some inspiration and background about my project, when joining as a student, when joining Bit Project, I went through the serverless curriculum on GitHub. And GitHub, what it basically is a platform like Google Drive, basically, but for code. So with GitHub, people are able to work together on coding projects, share code, and keep track of the history of a code file. And on GitHub, CounselorBot would actually create issues and help guide the student through the serverless course. And this just basically means that the student or CounselorBot would provide steps for the student to go through, like as you see on the left, that's like a long issue thread. And those are just what steps used to look like when I went through it, right? So the CounselorBot would tell you what to do, what not to do, and it would actually check your code. So now, as great as this may sound, like CounselorBot opening up new issues, guiding you through the course, opening up and checking your code, there were actually there were a few quirks through the curriculum, right? So some of these quirks cause students to be like, I accidentally merged this branch. What do I do now? Why isn't this bot opening a new issue? And how do I resolve these merge conflicts? So I, along with the rest of the students, noticed that these were a few prevalent themes across CounselorBot, right? So one problem especially was merge conflicts, and this was just all because of a problematic file called .progress, right? So whenever a user tried to merge onto the main branch, there might be a conflict. And then if the user tries to resolve that conflict and they resolve it the wrong way, then the whole bot would be like kaboom, and then it would blow up, and then then the counselor would need to help them. And the counselor being like an instructor, so like a physical person and not the GitHub bot. And sometimes steps and issues would not open, there are ridiculously long issue threads like this one on the left. As you can see me just scrolling through, they're trying to find where the heck I am. And there's also something wrong with, or not something wrong, but something that's super frustrating is it's like really hard to find what went wrong with like a test run, right? So whenever you commit your code, CounselorBot will actually run your code and check that it actually does what you say it does and doesn't just trust you on that, right? So this might help catch an error. And even though that sounds super like strict, this is actually how I did most of my learning, right? Because if some of my code was wrong, the CounselorBot would actually tell me and I would go and fix that error. And another problem with CounselorBot was that since it's deployed as a Node app, it's also kind of slow. And we will go into that more, but let's go into the next slide where I talk about more of like these issues with the like super hard to find like just what went wrong with a test, right? So if you commit your code, this you're seeing on the screen right now, just what you have to go through to find like that one small line that I'm highlighting right now about like what went wrong. So let's go through that again. Like, look at all these tabs. Like, where the heck do you go, right? So there's all these tabs on GitHub. And if you're new to GitHub, like I was when I first started the course, you have no idea what any of this means. So in order to get to the failing check and seeing the error, you'd have to go through a ton of steps. And that combined with a lot of the other issues with CounselorBot left me looking like this boy right here. And it was just me being super frustrated at my computer and being like, why is this bot not doing what it's supposed to be? And I'm not trying to bash on the counselor bot here because no product is ever perfect on its first iteration. And that's why even like the largest of companies like Facebook, Google, Apple, they always continuously roll out updates. So my project is actually called CounselorBot Serverless Pro Max, and it's an improved and feature-richened version of CounselorBot. So this not only adds a ton of new features, but also exponentially increases the user experience. And some of the main improvements of CounselorBot Serverless Pro Max is that one, it's serverless, right? So this, instead of from a Node app, this means that it is super scalable, right? So if, let's just say our CounselorBot started receiving a ton of requests, like 200 students wanted to start this course. And if it was deployed on a Node app, the Node app might just go boom and it might crash. But with serverless, which it's actually deployed on Azure functions right now, serverless and Azure functions will actually scale so that Azure functions will allocate more resources to our CounselorBot so that it's able to provide the services that it needs to do for all those 200 students. And it's also more user-friendly, right? So now with CounselorBot, in a second, we'll go into the demo, but you can actually comment for help. You can skip to any step within the curriculum, and the CounselorBot just allows you to do that, and you're able to do what you want without the fear of just breaking the bot and being like, what am I supposed to do now, right? And Councilbot is also super smart now. So I actually added separate pull requests and issues, so there's no more ridiculously long issue threads. So each step would be its own separate issue, and that's just like the real world. So when you add a new feature to a code base, you're actually going to create a pull request to the main branch, and that is what Councilbot tries to imitate. So after this course, you're actually prepared for the real world. And as I mentioned, Councilbot is now deployed on serverless. And another new feature is main branch protection. So students are no longer going to be able to merge pull requests too early, right? Because there's going to be a ton of red. And what that basically means is that this is red, that's not good. So there's main branch protection, and this just prevents users from merging pull requests too early. And we also have a step skipper function. And what that basically does is allow the user or more advanced users to skip to further steps in the curriculum. And we also have an intelligent question and answer service. So instead of asking an instructor, users can actually comment their issue and be like, hi bot, what is wrong with my program? How do I do this step, right? And the bot will actually answer. So with that said, let's go into a demo. So I'm currently, maybe you're just listening to me ramble and you're like, what is this guy saying? So in order to tie that all together, let's go into a demo and see how this works. Okay, so right here, we have the serverless curriculum. And what the curriculum, when I say curriculum, basically is it's just a giant GitHub repo. And what the CounselorBot will do is open up steps for you. So if you just go into the Issues tab, we will see week 1, step 1. So this basically just tells us what to do right here. It says tasks. So create a new branch named test and add a paragraph introducing yourself in the About Me section of blog.md. And after that, let's create a pull request called adding self-introduction, and then merge the pull request if the bot approves our changes. So let's create a new branch called test. And usually we actually have students do this through the command line and they would clone the repo. But just for demo purposes and time saving, we're going to use the web app. So instead, edit the About Me section. So I'm going to say, hi, I'm Ganning. And usually a student would write more than this, but just for demo and to save time, we're just going to leave it at that. And it also said to create a pull request. So let's just say we want to draft it because we're not entirely sure that we're ready for the bot to review our changes. And then let's just say that I'm ready now. And I'm confident that my code will pass. So let's click ready for review. And now the bot's actually going to be like, hi, I really like what you did. And it's going to approve our changes, right? So all this turns green. And we like clicking big green buttons. And when the bot approves our changes, we especially like that. So it's we can click merge pull request. And when the bot approves our changes, it just means that we did our code correct. So we're actually allowed to merge it. So once we merge our pull request, the bot will actually open up our second issue, which is actually known as step 2 now, right? So if we look at this, it says download Visual Studio Code, clone this repo, create a new branch named hello, and then in the week 1 directory and then create a new file called helloworld.js, and write and export a JavaScript function that returns hello world like that. And then we would commit our changes and then make a pull request. So let's do that. If we just create a branch called hello, and then we can click add file, create a new file. So we can say week 1, hello world.js. And then what we can say is function hello. And then we can say return hello world. And then if you recall, this is actually what the bot wanted us to do, right? But let's just say that we want the bot to be able to actually make sure that it's checking that we failed a test. So we're just going to put a ton of exclamation points over there at the end because I'm super excited about today and this conference. So we can say module.exports is equal to hello, and that will actually export our hello function for us. So let's click commit new file, create a pull request as the bot said, click create pull request. And then as you can see, there's a yellow dot here under create hello world.js. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to check our code right now. So when that's yellow, it means it's checking our code. And this process actually does take around 30 seconds or so. So just to save time, I'm going to pause it and I'll be right back. And what you can see that the bot actually just failed our check, right? So it was you did something wrong. And there's no green, it's all red right here. So we don't want to click red buttons. We're not going to do that. And the bot makes it actually super easy for us, right? So it says there was an error, got hello world with a ton of exclamation points, but was expecting hello world just like that. So as you can see here, the bot's like, I'm going to be super nice and friendly, and we're going to give you like what actually went wrong. So if you just look at this, and then we can be like, oh, that's what we need to fix. So let's just do that right now. So if we go back in the hello branch, go under week 1 hello world.js, and then just delete all of those exclamation points so that this is what the bot wants, and we can commit these changes again. And once that happens, the bot will actually check our code again, right? So you can see another yellow dot there. And this process will take another 30 seconds because the bot is just running its tests. And once the check finishes, as it does right now, you see a check mark, right? Because we did everything right. We removed all the exclamation points, and the bot's going to be like, we like these changes, and it's going to approve it and say time to merge. So as you can see, all that red just turned into all this green. And when we see big greens button, what do? We click them. So let's click that time to merge button and merge our pull request. And if you go into our issues now, we're actually going to see our next issue. So as you remember from like the inspiration page on our slideshow, there's no longer super long issue threads. Each step is actually now its own issue. So the next step is getting cat pics with Postman. So let's just say that we're super advanced, right? We don't need to know how to do this. We can skip to another step in the curriculum that actually challenges us. So fear not, for we have Step Skipper. So all we need to do is enter our username and our repository name, which is serverless. I'm just going to copy and paste that just so I don't make a typo. Click next step. And we can skip to any of these steps right here. So this actually will grab it from our GitHub repository and display it all here. So we can say getting emotional with the face API because we're really emotional. So if we just click change, it's going to prompt us to sign into GitHub. And once we do that, it's going to authenticate that we're actually us and we're actually authorized to do this. So once we do that, we can actually click into our issues and we see getting emotional with the face API. So this actually allowed us to skip to another step in our curriculum. And let's just say I have no idea how to add a repository secret, right? So repository secret, what's that? Well, no fear, again, for we can say at CounselorBot, how do I add a repository secret? Question mark. Click comment, and then let's just see what CounselorBot does in response to this. And it's going to be like, woohoo, we're going to answer your question for you. So if you need to know how to make a secret on your repository, look here. And it's going to give us a link so that you can head to there and just be like, oh, this is how you do it. And it'll follow you can follow its directions. But let's just say that we want to summon CounselorBot, and let's give CounselorBot something that it has no way of understanding. Like this gibberish right here, like I can't even pronounce that word. But let's just see how CounselorBot will respond to that. And it's going to be like, please contact your instructor on Slack for help. So whenever CounselorBot does encounter an issue that it does not know how to solve, it's going to tell you to contact your instructor on Slack. But this doesn't happen really often because the way that this Q&A service was trained on it was actually trained on this cohorts, like frequently asked questions on a platform called Piazza. And then we actually trained and put all those question and answers in a database so that this bot is actually able to fetch common questions that students were asking and then comment their answers for them. So this just lessens like the amount of time that instructors have to spend answering to like 200 Slack messages. So like this saves time and allows the student to be more independent, which is super awesome. And I know that was a lot, but in summary, what CounselorBot will do is open new issues, check your code, provide the student with some help. It allows you to skip to different steps. And in general, it just guides the student through the serverless curriculum. And CounselorBot Serverless Pro Max is just a super new and improved version of that with a super awesome user experience. So that is our demo, and I hope you enjoyed. So you might be like, wow, that's a lot. How does it do this? So basically, whenever the user commits code to a branch in the serverless repo, the CounselorBot will call the GitHub API and trigger a workflow run. And whenever this happens, we're going to grab the branch name, run the respective YAML file, use the username and the repo name, run a file called .progress.js, and then run a test-specific file, right? So if the user's on step 6, for example, we're actually going to say we want to run this test file for step 6 so we can check their code. And if that test fails, then we're going to tell the user, as you saw, we're going to comment the error and be like, this is wrong. But if the test passes, then we can actually tell the user and we can be like, yay, we can merge this pull request now. So that was all that green stuff that we saw. And after that, if the user passes, we're actually going to make a post request to Hasira, which is a Postgres database, and we're actually going to increment the step that the user's on. So if you saw here, we needed the count value to run this test specific file. So this just allows the bot to run the next test file. And some things that I learned throughout creating this, because since CounselorBot was not a completely from scratch project, I learned a ton about just jumping into a curriculum and adding new features, reading documentation, and not all documentation is created equally. So in creating this, I actually had to create a pull request to fix an error in GitHub's OctoKit, which was super awesome. And it was my first open source contribution. So I was like, yay, this is super awesome. And also talking to my mentor and just fixing my code and like what was wrong. And also asking for feedback, right? Because creating this presentation, this was my first presentation I've ever created for a conference. And my mentors have been super helpful in doing that. And that just leads us to our thank you slides. So thank you to not only like Bit Project, so like especially Daniel and Emily, who helped me figure out like what was going wrong with my code, but also to my mentors, Anthony and Gothamy, for not only giving me like the technical experience of like, this is how everything works, but also like the career experience, like this is how you prepare for an interview, this is how you learn a language, and just everything in general. And yeah, I'm super excited that I was able to present at this conference, and I really hope you guys enjoyed. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And thank you for watching.